I'm cool with flipping and flopping.
Yeah, I am too. Well, hello everyone. Dr. Rob Kiltz on one of our lives, and a little Kiltz's Keto Conversation, Health and Wellness. Really excited to have Dr. Ryan Bland with us today. And Dr. Bland's a chiropractor and practicing applied kinesiology.
Yes,
But I'm going to let him probably make much more sense out of that. Ryan, God bless you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be on. Yeah, I do what's called applied kinesiology, which is very different than most forms of chiropractic. What we do specifically is we look at the thoughts, the traumas, and the toxins of each and every patient, no matter what their complaints are, and we try to make sense of it, and then we try and balance it. So we do actually do physical work with the patients, but our adjustments aren't always like the traditional rack 'em and crack 'em sort of adjustments, but we can do this. But we also do functional medicine where we're sending our patients out for blood tests and all kinds of elimination diets. And obviously, I'm a big fan of the carnivore and keto lifestyle. That's why I wanted to come on and talk more about that with you. And we also provide movement therapy and all kinds of stuff to my patients, and as well as emotional support.
Well, that sounds very cool. Well, tell us a little about your background, how maybe where you grew up and how you got to where you're at and decided to do what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was born and raised in Manhattan, and I'm a second generation applied kinesiologist. So I have quite a couple of members of my family before me who have been in this field. So I grew up with the understanding that there's a natural way to do some things if you don't want to just go to the regular allopathic medical doctor. And I've watched patients of all walks of life, from people with back pain to people with chronic Lyme's disease or diabetes. And I've watched these people obtain health and wellness with these amazing holistic practitioners in my family and others, you know, family, friends and stuff. And alongside working with patients, is I've been in practice almost 10 years. A lot of holistic doctors like to say they have a lot to say about medical practice and the allopathic model, but I think that there's a place for everybody at the table, and I think that there are a lot of amazing medical doctors out there who are like angels on earth, saving people's lives every day. And I think that when I hear someone talk negative about a doctor, or they say something, or they dismiss somebody's beliefs, you have to realize that any doctor, no matter what you think of what kind of job they're doing, they went out to a lot of school, and that's their belief and their feeling, and everybody works different. So I think it's really important for the medical community and the holistic community to play nicely and work together, because if we don't, our patients are the ones who suffer.
Well, that's a good point. And as a medical doctor, much of our training was sort of driven that we know best, and all the others that are in the non-allopathic medical specialty just don't get it. And so that's kind of the craziness to all this. What I've opened up to all areas of health and wellness, mind, body, again, traditional, Western, Eastern, and integrating and learning much more about other options and integrating these options. And tell us a little bit about chiropractic and the applied kinesiology and how those two things differ or are similar, and how you integrate those in a patient's illness or complaints of whatever they're bringing to you.
Absolutely. Well, the main premise of chiropractic, you're going to look towards the nervous system. They're nervous system based doctors. That's where the belief of, the power that, made the body can heal the body. So our nervous system is actually one of the first thing that's developed in our body. The notochord, I think it's between weeks 4 and week 6, you have a tiny little spinal cord. And that's pretty much the focus of chiropractic, is the spinal cord and the relationship to the positioning of bones. Now, the purpose of chiropractic is to free the spinal canal so that all of the organs can get the proper output and nervous system communication from the body. That is also shared in the philosophy of applied kinesiology. But what applied kinesiology does is it builds on that, and it says, okay, so we've adjusted these bones, and we can adjust these bones and move them to have better outcomes. And there's a lot of interesting case studies and meta-analysis on it. But what applied kinesiology is really focusing on is the thoughts, the traumas, and the toxins. And so you're really sitting down, getting to know the patient, working with them, running labs. I do all kinds of, blood labs, from hormones to Dutch tests, complete metabolic panels. We're doing all kinds of things based on who's coming in and what their complaints are. And then you have the physical trauma. And what differs with applied kinesiology is you just have that adjustment in chiropractic, but applied kinesiology looks at neurovascular points almost the way an acupuncturist would look at these points. And what's really interesting about applied kinesiology, it was invented by this gentleman named Dr. George Goodheart. And Dr. George Goodheart in the 60s was bored of being a chiropractor. He said, I don't know.
We get bored from time to time, don't we?
Yeah. And clinician burnout's a huge thing. So he was burnt on it. And he went to school to be an acupuncturist, and he was able to bridge the gap, basically, of 5,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine and analysis and data to chiropractic. And he was adjusting a patient, and he noticed that the meridian of this person's gallbladder cleared through the adjustment, and then he was able to do these things vice versa. So with this knowledge, I'm able to help a lot of people naturally obtain health and wellness. And it's just a very beautiful technique that is always growing, and there's always new things coming out.
Did you think of it a little bit like I'm thinking like a kinked wire, and we kind of, I always think of the human body like a Ferrari, or even really where they're today, because of not just the mechanical component of a combustion engine, but the wiring that goes through it that, really touches every bit of the automobile. And I'm, the electromolecular energy that goes through all of us. I imagine that those that maybe started into the sort of adjustments and or the needle points maybe didn't really know these sort of things. But how do you look at it and think of it in these terms?
Well, what's really cool about applied kinesiology is one of the main forms of biofeedback is muscle testing. And you could muscle test and challenge different vertebrae, but you could also muscle test and challenge different foods and different stimulus on the patient. And what's really fun is when you have a patient and you're finding all these bits of information out, and then you go and use some of the allopathic model, like an IgG, sensitivity for food, like a food panel. And you see that the results are quite similar, or sometimes exactly the same. So I'm able to pull and use the ideas of biofeedback to get the actual information physically from the patient, and then on lab and lab analysis. And you're really able to, it gives the person, the person's in the driver's seat, because they feel their muscle get weak when you expose them to gluten, or you say, here, chew on this piece of bread. Let's see how the ability for you to use your deltoid muscle or your pectoral muscle. And you watch these people, with the stimulus and not the stimulus, and their ability to withhold their muscles, it's night and day. They're like, wow, I feel so weak when I have gluten in my body versus not. So that is a really good example of the uniqueness of applied kinesiology and how you can, work around different issues with it.
So who are the typical patients, the problems they're presenting with that obviously you may see through that into other areas, but who's coming to you for what particular things?
I really have, I wish I can say I specialized in something specific other than I would say I specialize in the complex patient. Usually the person who has come to me or, knocks on my door and says, I'm coming in, I want to be a patient now, is the person who has been to 5 or 6 other doctors. They're already seeing another chiropractor. They have a personal trainer. They've got somebody figuring out their meals. And they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm still lost. So I have a lot of people who are definitely what I would consider the complex patient. Even if they're just coming in for physical care, it's still like, I've had 3 car accidents and a back surgery, and it's not working for me. What do I do?
So is it pain? Is it just sort of fatigue? Is it brain fog? Is it a depression? And obviously maybe all those things go along with that there's, the list of complaints that, again, you're now honing in on the possibilities of the causes.
Yes.
And then determining which areas to treat, which sound like they're completely opposite. Or again, people are just, they're over here and the problem to treat is over here.
Yeah. Well, I live in Washington, and I think a lot of what you see as a doctor is kind of where you are. So in the state of Washington, I've practiced here for about 3 years. I see a lot of people with fungal issues. A lot of people, their basement floods out here. It's humid sometimes. And if you don't have the right situation, the brain fog comes with that, the depression. We've had a long 2 years. I've seen a lot of depression. I've seen a lot of anxiety. A lot of substance abuse is prevalent, I think. And I don't even think people are realizing that they're at a level of substance abuse, until they sit down and really, work on it. But I think, to go back to what you were talking about is accepting new and different things, is I'm at a point where I see people at a spiritual crossroads a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. Like if I had to say, like, every single patient that comes into my door, as soon as they walk through it, I know they're in some sort of spiritual crossroad where they need to realize what's going on in their body. Because a lot of us, and a lot of people in our country and around the world, they're living in a state of severe degeneration and severe dysfunction. And I think that these layers of these severe degeneration and dysfunction, you don't notice it right away. And then you get used to it and it becomes normal. But I think that, to go back to your question, geographically, in Washington, it's a lot of fungal stuff. I still have a good amount of patients in New York, and a lot of people back east, they are very prone to Lyme and Borrelia. And you see a lot of these cases with people who have co-infections. And Lyme is really interesting because you just don't have, it's very complicated as it is, but there's usually something else. There's usually another parasite or a metal or some sort of something disrupting the hormones. So all these things are just so layered.
Well, so it's kind of maybe an interesting segue into the keto carnivore. So my general theory is we're destroying the glycobiome. The glycobiome is the sugar layer of our entire body in our bowels that is the immune barrier and the initial troops and soldiers that protect all of us. And because we eat a tremendously high sugar carbohydrate diet, it feeds the bacteria, the yeast, the molds, including the viruses. And so I imagine that's part of, I believe, the largest problem to humanity, that, we know that sugar is deadly and other poisons are deadly that come from plants. And I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about other toxins and all of that. But I imagine you see a lot of food allergies and likely toxicities. Can you talk a little bit about that and how those play a role in patients, people's? I don't like to use the word patient,
people,
because we're taking care of people, and we have a particular expertise. We all have expertise. We are here to take care of humans that are suffering. and we all bring some expertise to the table. Again, I kept on going. Tell us a little bit about how you were going to lead in with the toxins, the food, and how it affects us globally.
Absolutely. So a lot of people who are listening to this who are interested in carnivore and keto, we already know that, you know, the world is riddled with these hyper palatable foods, with all kinds of things that are controlling the future cravings and your future thoughts with all these chemicals. But we all know about lectins, which are found in nuts, beads, and seeds, and, you know, the seed oils. That's a huge thing. Everybody is, you know, oh, I can't believe this is bad. This is bad. Like, it's terrible. It's like engine oil. It's horrible for you.
No, it's bad, but they say it's good.
It's not. It's really not. It's insane. And those lectins, they cause the tight gap junctions in your stomach to open up, and then all kinds of stuff gets through, and it wreaks havoc on people's health. And then it also, I like what you said. I think you said the glycobiome.
The glycobiome.
I like that.
Go ahead.
I feel like the glycobiome is being absolutely destroyed, and it's just making that kind of progression stronger for people. And a lot of these carbohydrate-based diets and, you know, these lectin-filled diets, they're just aiding to heart disease. They're aiding towards inflammation. You know, you have stuff like solanines, which is tomatoes, potatoes, ashwagandha, which people think is this great neuroadaptogenic thing. You know, ashwagandha, the solanine content in ashwagandha can really mess with people's hormones and make people severely depressed.
Quickly. So think of the damage around the globe. Think of the Amazon that's being deforested. That's damage to the glycobiome. So the plants that cover the surface of the earth are sugar created. And when you remove them, you expose the soil, which is essentially important for the function of the glycobiome and the protection of the earth overall. So what's happened is we've destroyed the glycobiome that coats all of our body. The keratin is sugar on the outside, and the rest of the glycobiome is a mucopolysaccharide layer. When it is damaged, the bacteria, yeast, viruses, and all the lectins, oxalates, phytates, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
Fraction. It then digs deep into the epithelium. It breaks open the cellular separations. It harbors and grows, and then it just circulates all over our body. So you said yeast, mold, bacteria, viruses, which again, it's the damage to the glycobiome, which very few people that I speak to ever heard of it, because everyone thinks the microbiome is so important. When you damage the glycobiome, the microbiome flourishes and causes disease. Absolutely. But from time to time, the glycobiome is able to kind of hold the dam from caving in, right? But it's only temporary. And that's the cause of probably all the disease you take care of and all the disease I take care of, which is such a simplistic way. Now, you mentioned the what they think, the thoughts, the poisons, and the trauma. I may have said it backwards. Tell us a little about the sort of the thinking, thoughts, and the emotions, and how that plays into people, health and wellness, and how you approach it.
Well, thoughts and emotions, as we know, they drive a lot of our hormonal alchemy, pretty much most of it. So if you're thinking stressful things and you're stressed out, the cortisol in your body is going to go crazy. You're going to have all kinds of inflammation. But you got to, you know, you see where these people are at, and you have to slowly come from a place of love and undo the damages that have already been done. And you have to push them towards the right point of health, towards their goals and what they believe. And with the emotions, you know, this is just something that I sit down, I take the time out with people and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Because when a patient comes into my office and I say, hey, how you doing? And they say, I'm okay. I look at them and I say, you're paying a lot of money to be here. You better find a couple of other words to let me to go off of, because you're here because you're not okay. So let's talk about the shadow. Let's talk about the gremlin. And we talk about, you know, doing personal work and radical responsibility with ourselves and in our lives. And, you know, I really extend myself as a person in a community to my patients, as I'm there for them no matter what. I always say, hey, here's my email, here's my phone number. Call me, email me whenever. I'll get back to you within an hour. But in terms of, you know, applied kinesiology has a lot to offer, because there's different branches of applied kinesiology. There's, you know, ways to deal with different sort of emotions. And there's things called Bach flower remedies, which are predominantly used. You muscle test through different remedies for different anxieties or different kinds of depression. There's a lot of stuff. And then there's just some physical work you can do with people. I find one of the most successful things of dealing with emotion is cranial work. Working and calming and enhancing the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and the digest, the feed and breathe. You know, you can play with what nerve, as a chiropractor and applied kinesiologist, you can play with what side of the nervous system you're going to stimulate. So if I have somebody who's really emotional, I'm going to pick only parasympathetic things for that visit to talk about, to go over, and to build on. So it's about finding people where they're at, seeing which part of their nervous system needs more excitement or less excitement. And usually, you know, we live in a really like excitable world. Most people are coming in, you need to cool them off a little bit.
Well, you know, before the phone, the telegraph, the newspaper, and now certainly our instant internet, there was far less stimuli. It was where am I going to get my meal? Or I'm working in the day, and what's our survival and our habitat, essentially. Tell us a little bit about how you approach food, and do you have any particular recommendations that you discuss in general?
Well, I'm a big fan of red meat. And I think that, you know, it's one of the most healing and most nutritious things. And I've had my own personal healing with it. And I really recommend to a lot of people that this is a very important thing. You know, you do see a lot of people, no matter how healthy they think they're eating, they're shortchanging themselves on proteins and fats. And because they're scared. We're made to be afraid. You know, we're made to be, butter is going to, oh, you eat that butter, it's going to give you a heart attack. And it's not necessarily the butter. The only time I've had high cholesterol is when I was eating too much fruit.
Well, we talk a lot about this, and my theory is simple. We are lions through and through. For the last 3.5 million years, we pretty much probably ate little to no plants. Our starving times or our less alpha humans ate plants. And it's kind of a crazy concept, but the plants, ultimately, we didn't have consumption ever of any significance. So what we're doing is we're eating a simple diet that is told that it's healthy. Yes, it's ultimately deadly. And so every disease you take care of and I take care of and pretty much most take care of, we're simply diseased because of the poisonous diet. If you were taking care of someone that drinks a bottle of vodka a day or smokes a pack of marijuana a day or uses any other drug every day, you know, their health and wellness would first have to be addressed in removing the toxins that we absolutely know.
Absolutely.
Right? And the leading cause of disease is glycans. A glycan is a sugar that's in our bodies. Glucose, galactose, mannose, fructose. There are many sugars in our body, not just glucose. And ultimately, glycation, which is the oxidative damage from sugars. Pour sugar all over your car and just kind of put it on there and leave it on there every day. It caramelizes and hardens. So we are placing sugar in our body all the time, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that got me to the thought of a lot of people that I see, and I see probably at least 5 or 6 vegans a month who are like, I'm bloated. And that gut, that hardness in their gut from all those the glycoprotein, the glycation, you know, the fermentation, and then you have the aldehydes and the inflammation. That gut is so easily removed very quickly within 3 weeks. I see people like usually 3 weeks at a time. And in 3 weeks, they're like, oh, I don't know what happened. I lost 15 pounds. I'm like, well,
we have a compost heap that smells, and but you can take it and put it in a controlled environment and make beer, whiskey, and wine. Basically, all plants ferment because they come with the bacteria and yeast in a very nice warm spot in our body, which basically make heat, alcohol, aldehydes, and gas, which ultimately I believe causes cancer and every disease we suffer from. So we've been taught not to eat fat, eat oils, eat lots of vegetables, and a little bit of protein. Protein of any significance is deadly for humanity. That's the interesting part that no one understands. When you eat 3 times a day, even if it's a carnivorous meal, you still may be damaging the glycobiome. You're not allowing it. It's kind of like if every year you use the same fields to regrow, the field is damaged and it won't regrow. So when you eat 3 times a day, and certainly more, especially the vegans and vegetarians, it's a grazing day. You never allow the glycobiome to regenerate. So that causes all the epithelial damage, the Crohn's, the IBS, the hernias, the hemorrhoids, the ulcers, which are all sort of taken individually as different diseases. And I imagine your approach is to the entire human, and it sounds like beyond, which doesn't just say, well, you've got this disease and we've got this treatment and this disease and this treatment, which is much of what we're taught in modern medicine. And I suspect in some way, even some of the ancients still follow that simple model.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely incredible because there's so many amazing books and so many amazing things of the past that point that eating like this is just a great thing. Like, and one of the ways that I was exposed to eating like this is I was sick as a young child. I went on this beautiful trip. I think I was like 11, and we were in Mexico. And as we were leaving the resort, it was the last day, I saw them dipping the water bottles in this garbage can and like setting up the water. So the bottled water, they were just like getting it like, and this was a nice place. I'm not going to call them out. I got home and I started gaining like a tremendous amount of weight. And I got, I was, maybe, I was 11 and I got up to a point where I was like 30 pounds overweight and I was getting sick all the time. And I had no idea why. And it turns out that I caught Giardia I had a little bit of Montezuma's revenge, but I didn't have the dietary thing. It was just like destroying my health. So I went to this really old school, famous, like I think he's probably like one of the first functional medicine guys. His name is Dr. Levin, very famous, cool guy. And he put me on all kinds of supplements. And at this point, it got so complicated. My family was like, we got to get you to like a guy.
Okay.
He did all kinds of functional medicine stuff. And this was like in the 90s. So this was like before, like no one knew this guy was nuts. You know what I mean? And he gave me a cassette tape on Candida, and I like listened to it as like an 11-year-old, and I was like, yo, this guy's dialed in. So basically they put me on, you know, a ketogenic diet, and I lost all the weight. I stopped being sick. And I not only returned to being a normal kid, I was like better than I ever was.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And it was a lot of work, but I remember it was like for 2 years, there was, you know, no birthday cakes, not even of my own. You know, I refused. And I had this like tremendous willpower as an 11-year-old kid. And I think back, if I didn't change at that point, my life would have been doomed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We still, you know, you're born and then you die, you're still fighting it, you know, but it would have been a less pleasurable outcome for sure if I didn't learn from that.
We have some really great people, Kelly, Carol, Holistic Health, Rebecca, a lot of good questions. One of them is about what are your thoughts on coffee in carnivore?
I'm going to go personally with my personal gut feeling. I think coffee is not a good choice. I think that from my standing, I've seen a lot of people addicted to it. Like not even like, oh, there's no way, I'm like having really serious health issues. Oh, there's no way I'm not going to drink coffee. I think people get a false sense of energy from it. It's a bean. It's a lectin. It's bean water. For me, it's a hard no. I am a little bit more sensitive to people going off of it. I think there's amazing. I think going cold turkey is really hard. So I think that weaning off of it is a great thing. And there's different things you can take to help yourself get off of it. One of my favorite things is something called Takasumi Supreme. It's like a chelated bamboo, and it helps your body as a binder bind to all of these molecules of the methylxanthines and the theobromines. But scientifically, these methylxanthines, they run amok in your body for like 3 months after 1 cup of coffee. So I think that the risk isn't worth reward. If you have to do something, maybe try like an herbal tea or, you know, I don't know.
What's in herbal tea?
You know, some people do like a ginkgo biloba or something, or a ginseng. I just, you know, those things are still not great.
They are plants.
They are plants, but I think that in terms of how powerful coffee is and the amount of digestive disruption I've seen, you know.
Well, I'm wondering, and I know because I'm addicted to coffee. Well, actually, it's not true because I go off it last week, next week. I was off the last year. And so you know what I always say to people? If you label it, you enable it.
Exactly.
Don't label it. Don't label yourself addicted ever.
That's a huge thing. And it's also situational and how the person expresses themselves. You know, I had a patient in here the other day and she said, you know, can I have this? It's my weakness. And I'm like, whoa. We're trying to create a new you. We're not playing into the weaknesses anymore. So it's, you know, addiction is an interesting thing. There is a study by a famous guy who he's a psychiatrist, and he studied what's the difference when grandma gets a hip replacement and is on morphine and another guy's across in the parking lot shooting up a little dope. It's the time, the setting, the environment. You know, grandma's got the whole family visiting. This guy just lost his job. He's doing heroin in his car. So I think it's all about setting. So if coffee or tea is a special thing to you where you're bonding and communicating and, you know, it's a different thing. But if I have a patient who's suffering and they're not feeling well, I say, you know, let's cut it off for a little bit.
And I think that's the important part. 66, I feel amazing. I drink a cup or two with butter. See, the butter and the cream is critical. See, this is where fat protects the glycobiome. And certainly, you know, the question is, how much vegetables and fruit do you eat?
Absolutely. Me personally, it's situational. I don't really eat any vegetables. I'll have maybe like sliced pickles,
okay,
for flavoring, to get sometimes when I like need a little extra flavoring. And in terms of fruits, I lift a lot of weights and I do a lot of cardiovascular activity. sometimes I will eat some fruit based on how much activity, but I have to earn the carbs. I have to come back soaking wet, dripping. I'm going to pass out.
So here's my theory on sugar. Fruits, vegetables are pure on white sugar. That's what they break down to in our body.
Absolutely.
And sugar stimulates the opiate receptors and the epinephrine receptors.
I absolutely agree. People are high on that stuff.
So sugar, though, even in the workout world, I believe, so everyone thinks sugar's energy. It's not. Sugar must be converted to fat or you have no energy. ATP is made from fat from the mitochondria. So I've had a lot of discussions and you know, chime in. You know, I know there's a lot of interesting, but ultimately we're studying everything in a sugar-based world.
Yeah.
And we think sugars are energy, but it wasn't for 3.5 million years.
Absolutely not.
So now the glycobiome, real quick, just to get back to that, because a glycosylation, so the Golgi apparatus makes a protein out of amino acids, and basically, or the endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus, it modifies it with a glycan. So this is the part people don't know, is that 85% of your proteins must be glycosylated. Glycosylation allows your neurotransmitters to function. It happens faster than the speed of light. And if you don't have a glycans in reserve, so this is where glycogen comes in. Glycogen is not for energy of the cell. It's for glycosylation. And when you read about glycosylation in the glycobiome, you go like, oh my God, because if you're a carnivore, true carnivore, your blood sugars stay, a high fat carnivore, your blood sugars stay in the 40 to 60s always. Because the purpose of sugar is to glycosylate and not for energy. Because people think that sugar is fast energy and fat is long-term energy. So we can talk about that sometime because I think it's really fascinating. And I'm wondering how do you guys, in your practice, in your belief system, and you talk about dietary or nutritional changes, what's your general approach to nutritional changes?
Well, it really depends on who it is. So if someone comes in and they're really sick, I'm going to tell them it's time to get boogieing. And I'm going to tell them, hey, let's try straight carnivore. You know, there's a lot of people who I see who I'm like, hey, man, you should just try eating steak, water, and salt. Eat fatty steak. And, you know, from there, after a week, after 3 weeks, let's see where we're at. And, you know, try and stick to something for 3 weeks. And I think that's like, for most people, it's 21 days.
That's it. Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you just try it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll get you back in and we'll figure something else out or make the transition a little smoother. Now, a lot of people, when you tell them you should remove stuff to their diets, you really realize that adults, no matter how old we are, we're just babies and big bodies.
We're kids, and men are worse than anything.
Men, women, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all a pain in the ass, you know, to some extent for the things that we like and we're addicted to. But, you know, with a lot of people, like I said, I meet them where they're at from a place of love, and I try not to shame them, and I try not to put too much fear into their reality. But I say this, I'm like, you know, if I want somebody to shift gently, I say, look, it's time to eat more protein. Let's have grass-fed beef. I think grass-fed beef is an investment. I understand that it costs more, but the more you are involved in something, the cheaper you can figure out how to get it. There's plenty of cheap ways to get it, but omega-3s, it's like an investment in your heart health. Omega-6s, it's like taking money out of the bank and burning it and ripping it up. So a lot of the times I start with people by trying to remove as many lectins and gluten as possible.
But it sounds like you really focus on being a coach and cheerleader and not, because I know in Western medicine, we label, you're obese, you're hypertensive, you're diabetic, and even in the hallway, that's the obese lady over there or the hypertensive guy over there. And I think modern medicine has lost its humanity and understanding, connecting with nature. Now, I'm generalizing. There's so many great practitioners out there.
Absolutely.
And we want to sort of wake us all up to be more where you're sharing a relationship with our community.
Yeah, it's about slow change, and it's about inviting people. I'm actually doing a little bit of a talk with one of my patients, and she has an amazing story. She was a vegan for a really long time. And I remember our first meeting, I couldn't convince, there was not enough science, and I have all kinds of stuff in my office and articles. There was no magic trick. I could make this woman to eat a piece of steak. But I knew in my heart, and I knew based on my analysis and all the labs and everything, that this woman is deficient of protein, and she needs heme binding iron protein immediately. Now, it went from her continuing her diet and maybe sprouting some of the lentils, and she went on and she felt a little bit better, and then it got worse. Her situation got worse. And then I was like, look, this is what I think is a good idea. You should commit and just try it. I know it might feel different, but you've had meat before in your life. I'm sure of this. And she committed, and, she got everything back. She had lost everything. She had lost her, young woman too, lost her menstrual cycle, her job situation, her emotions, just her world around her, and her health was just crumbling. And now we communicate pretty much on a weekly basis, and she's just amazing. It's so, I'm here to tell people that you can change no matter how far from this reality you think you are. You can always try it and see how you can change. And why not? It's the easiest thing you could do for your health. And if you source these carnivore or keto diets correctly, it's cheap and it's good for the planet too.
Well, I remind everyone, a fat comes from an animal, oil comes from a plant. Oils in a bottle require an industrial plant, every one of them, okay? And we are meant to eat fatty meat. We're fativores. Fativore is what you are. If you're not fat in a famine, you're dead. So ultimately, it's the high fat consumption. We should be eating 80% of our calories from fat. We don't need as much protein, but you're right. You need the red meat because ultimately, that's likely where we came from. We weren't fishivores or chickivores or turkeyvores. We were hunting large mammals, which probably we got so good at it, we demolished most of them in this world. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. But anything, the bigger the animal, the better. The red meat, even better. As long as the ruminants, for people who don't know, are animals who chew on the grass. And they have a much different digestive system than us. And their digestive system actually will translate what is in a plant and make it bioavailable for our bodies. What's really interesting is I love the posts you make about all of the different foods and how, versus there was ribs versus tofu. And I think there was a one that I really liked. It was the lamb versus the broccoli. And people, they look at broccoli and we're all taught all these things. Most of the vitamins in that is not bioavailable.
Well, you learned a lot younger. It took me 55 years to really figure this out. I suffered as a kid, migraines, bowel bleeding, arthritis, psoriasis, kidney stones. I worked hard on Atkins and exercise in my 40s. And finally, I learned paleo, then keto. And when I hit carnivore full on at 55, game changed. 2 to 4 weeks. And you mentioned how quick it happens. And it's quite amazing. Talk a little bit about organ meats and bone marrow, bone broth. Do you have any thoughts on those sort of things and recommendations?
I love it. So a big part of my youth growing up is I was fed standard processed supplements. And most people don't realize that, you know, organ meats, these things are, this is old school, old school stuff. And standard process is forever old. They're like from the 1900s they started. And they have what's called protomorphogen supplements for people who can't, you know, like kids who aren't going to eat liver and stuff, or adults who are, there's no way they can change their palate. You know, that's the only thing. No matter how it's prepared, the organ meats just don't sit well, but I think they're great. I see so many people having benefits. And if you can't, you supplement with it. I've been supplementing with this for my whole entire life. If I have a digestive issue, there's something called Zypan. It helps. It's made with pancreas, cow pancreas. You know, you have a ligament issue, it's chicken thyroid, chicken cartilage, throat cartilage, and, you know, beef collagen. You know, so all of these different things. You got a liver problem, you have liver. You know, a heart issue, you do the heart. So I think these things are highly, highly effective. If you can stomach it the natural, real way, I support that, and I applaud everyone who can. But for me,
what are you generally doing for your daily habits, meals, drinks, breakfast, lunch, dinner? How many meals, those sort of things? So many people are interested in what you're doing, Dr. Bland.
Okay.
You inspire people around the world. So I'm so glad you're here today.
So what do? I wake up in the morning pretty early, and I'll usually have just water with electrolytes maybe. And I usually get my workouts in earlier in the days. I like to get as closer to the hour I woke up, depending on what I'm doing. I homeschool my son, so sometimes I have to spend a little time with my family getting the show going. And then I go to the gym, fasted. I don't usually like to even eat before the gym. And I'll go to the gym for about 2 hours between stretching and warming up and cooling down. I really make it my thing. It's just my thing. After that, I'll usually eat my first meal close to the afternoon. And, you know, my first meal's pretty basic. I usually eat bone broth, about 8 to 12 ounces, with some beef and salt. Very simple. Then I'll go throughout my day. I'll start work. And then after work, I'll probably have like a steak or something with some butter and maybe like a piece of cheese, which is really interesting about the carnivore diet. I never was able to eat any dairy, ever. And
you had damage to the glycobiome.
Ever. And the first time I did the carnivore diet was only for a month. I just had like a ground beef for a month, every meal.
Boring.
It was hard, but I did it. I felt like I feel really good. I was looking really good. It didn't matter. And ever since then, I can handle any amount of dairy. High fat dairy, the higher the fat, the better. I was never able to have milk. I could have like a glass of whole milk, no problem.
Amazing. Do you pick raw milk? Do you have a local source?
Yeah, you know, I'm in Washington, so there's a lot. I'm really lucky. So there's definitely a local source, raw organic milk, raw organic cheese. I go to this guy who gets me the, you know, grass-fed beef. You know, you gotta talk to your local farmers. You know, I pay $3.50 a pound for grass-fed beef. I buy a half a cow, and I freeze it. Now, $3.50 for a pound of beef is insane. Because you look at how much rice is in the store, it's like $9 for like a crummy bag of rice.
And if
no nutrients, no protein,
fatty meat,
no fat.
It's got twice the calories in it. So that's one of the things people don't understand. If they add more fat, they're paying less money. If you're getting A5 Wagyu, different story, but you can get fatty meat, and local sourcing sounds like a great way to go. Do you talk to the butcher to my friend Fran, make sure the butcher leaves a big hunk of fat on the meat? Do you have any preferences?
Yeah. So, you know, what's really cool about my situation is like you can tell them what you want. So I like a lot of ground beef. So I never tell them, keep all the fat, just turn it into, I like things to be, most of it to be turned into ground beef. And the rest of it, I like the rib eyes, the fattier cuts, the pot roast. And that's usually like dinner, you know, have like a pot roast sort of thing.
So actually, I think that's really a great idea for so many people. By grinding the meat, throwing in a little liver, a little bit of the bone broth in there is really, really a great way to do it. And in many cases, you know, you either put the egg on top with a little bit. I like a little blue cheese, and I think that's really awesome. But I think, and the one thing I want to like to remind everyone: when you cook a burger, if you allow all the fat to go out, you're missing the point of this.
Yeah, you got to have it. It's necessary. You'll feel different. You'll feel the effects.
Because there's something called rabbit starvation. So in general, my bet is part of the problem in the world today is we're eating lean chicken meat, turkey meat, even tenderloin, which is generally the meats thrown to the dogs and the scavengers. The prime rib, the fatty stuff was saved for the kings, the rest of the lean for the peasants and the slaves, the soldiers, and the prisoners. So the critical part of keto paleo, they're high fat, and the critical part of carnivore, it's really fativore. I know Amber O'Hearn's used the word lipivore, but scientists, I think, but most of us don't understand what lipids are. And well, my lipids are too high or low, but fat is really the healing master of the universe. How do you address people's fat intake and health and wellness?
I usually tell people to eat more, you know, and you know, cholesterol is a whoozy whatsy at this point. Everyone knows that. And I'm still a little conservative. Like if I have a patient who's sitting next to me and I know they're not on a carnivore or keto diet and they're doing their thing and they're not working out and they're not, you know, they're overweight and their blood pressure is high, you know, then I'm going to try and alternate how they're taking their fats in and try and improve their life. But I'm a little more careful with some of those patients sometimes because, you know, I do have a couple of patients who have shown up with it higher than what I'd even like to think is okay. You know, when somebody's hitting that 300 marker in terms of cholesterol, I'm a little concerned about how the heart is doing sometimes. I'm not a cardiologist, but at that point, I send them first. I send a lot of people out for stress tests and stuff like that. Hey, like you could have already done the damage. And the damage that they've done to their heart at this point probably has been from mostly, you know, sugars and lectins and plant oils 100%, because they're definitely not even eating enough of these foods.
All disease, is caused by a plant-based diet. Plants, sugars cause the damage, never fat. Fat is never the damage if you eat it. Now, the problem is that if you continuously damage the surface of the cells, the immune system comes in to try to fix it. And since all cells are made of what? Fat. Fat is what we're made of. Cells are simply phospholipids. Okay. Fat comes in to keep on repairing the damage that's done every day, every day, every day. So then fat gets the blame for the damage sugar did. It's simply trying to fix it. But since you eat 3 to 6 plant-based, low animal fat meals a day, you might eat a lot of protein. Protein in high significance is deadly. Because if I eat a high protein diet, protein sparing, deadly. And when you eat a high protein, you think somehow, well, I'm going to make more muscle. But all protein is converted to sugar in the liver, which is converted to fat, which creates the ultimate disease because the liver cannot convert it to fat fast enough so that the body has a hyperglycemia and the hyperproteinemia. And even someone was asking about B12 levels. Everything we're measuring, even in the carnivore world, straightforward, is still the norms are based on a herbivore's diet. And we're not herbivores.
No, so it's a totally different thing. You know, when you're looking at, like you're mentioning, when you're looking at a blood lab, you're being compared to whatever 350 million people in America or whatever, and it's kind of confusing. And that's kind of what I do and specialize in is identifying the person. Are they male? Are they female? How old are they? What's their life like? And, you know, I'm able to figure out what numbers is the ideal. What is the ideal for, you know, methylfolate for this person? What's the ideal iron levels? You know, is this person taking too much of this supplement, or are they, you know, because there's a lot of people who are supplementing, but they're just supplementing because it's popular. Mm-hmm. And I think supplements are great. I think that there's a time and a place, and I do believe from studying anthropology in these different cultures, they know what the plants do and they use them for a reason. Like, and you look at all of these cultures throughout, you know, time, some of the plants they used actually help protect the meat. You know, like you have the Japanese culture, you know, using wasabi because the fish has high in parasite. You know, you have people in Thailand with lemongrass. Now, these are people who indigenously know that these are the plants that are going to help them not get sick from potential pathogens. Before we had this, we're in, you know, we weren't always in an era where we had soap and water and, you know, really nice kitchens.
Although probably less soap and water is better for us. And, you know, my bet is because all of our anthropologic experience on food and culture is over the last 10,000 years, which is like it's our plant world. Basically the last 10,000 is the plant world. And basically when we were duped by the pharaohs, the priests, the popes, the presidents, the professors, the scientists, which I call general snake oil, because as you know, you're providing something which is looking, as you said, what's going on in the mind, what's going on in the habits which you're putting in your body, which turn out to be mostly toxic. And then talk a little bit more about the traumatic stuff, because I know I herniated my disc once. I went right to the surgeon. He said, nope, just wait. Well, for the next 5 years, I suffered, didn't get surgery. But when I went carnivore, never had back pain ever again.
You know, I see a lot of that. And I have an All-American lacrosse player I hadn't seen in a while. And he came in and he got whacked with that thing. And I said, bro, like, I know it's going to be difficult because he's a young man. I said, but just eat steak. And I said, just have steak and water. And it was like a week ago. And the amount of recovery he's had in the week, he's going to play right like this weekend in Utah to a tournament. And, you know, when a young man says, I'm not ready to play, you know, they're really hurting. So he said he sat out of practice a week ago, and now he's ready to go. So, you know, the carnivore diet is amazing for patients, and I use it a lot for people who are acute patients. I recently also had a woman. This is a really good story because sometimes you throw a fastball down the middle and it's a home run, and other things and other people you need to work with, and like you said, it took you some time to get out of it. This woman ended up in the hospital 2 weeks ago on a Friday, and I know somebody who she's related to, so she came into my clinic the next Monday, and I said, look, I'm going to see you at the end of the week, 5 days later, but just eat steak. I'm going to give you this one adjustment. I'm going to work on some of your muscles. She comes in Friday. I go, how you doing? She goes, oh, I think I'm all better now.
Well, listen, I want you to stop telling people to eat steak. And we should really recommend vegetables, fruit, fiber, seeds, nuts, and 3 meals a day at least. And 6 might be better to get your metabolism going. And this way, we doctors in the world can kind of help us sort of get more patients sick. And because ultimately the true beauty is the fact that we're helping people and then they no longer have to come back to us.
That's the goal.
Isn't that the goal? Isn't that the goal of like the mechanic? You know, in general, the mechanic's going to see it when you break down a little bit. But my sense is we overuse cars, we overuse our body. And
absolutely,
trauma is what you brought to this. where can people find you, Dr. Bland? And do you have anything online or things like that that they can say, wow, I'm learning from this guy, even though I haven't even seen him yet?
Yeah, I have a bunch of great videos going over all the different kinds of plant toxins, all on my Instagram. It's just at Dr. Ryan Bland. My website is Dr. Ryan Bland, DrRyanBland.com. And you could find all kinds of amazing content on there as well. So if you don't have Instagram or Facebook, you know, it's all online for everyone to enjoy. And if there's something that you're out there and you're hearing me talk about and you're interested, send me a message. I love to talk to people from all over the world. It's a real blessing to have these platforms as doctors, so we can tell people what we see and what we experience. And it was just a beautiful thing to be able to be on and have this conversation with you. I learned so much personally.
I'm excited every day that anyone wants to talk to me. And, you know, this is the beauty because one of my good friends just took a sabbatical from medical school after 2 years. COVID medical school experience is they're lonely. They're in a room. They're studying on an internet. They don't know anyone. There's a tremendous amount of depression, I believe, in even the medical communities that we're not really taking care of. We're ignoring it. Be a man, be strong, but ultimately we're humans. And I think we started with this a little bit about, you mentioned depression, emotions, and quite often people just need us to talk and get someone to listen to them. Tell me a little bit, because in modern medicine, you got 8 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe. You know, I got to not only see you, but I got to go write a note, order labs and medications, and then I got to get to the next person, which I got to figure out who they are. I don't practice that way, but how do you practice?
You know, I practice very similarly. I do have time limits on my schedule of how, like, what the time should be, but I very rarely, like, I don't even care.
Yeah,
I'm looking to see how long I can go over and how many. My wife is my office manager. I like to see how many times she's going to knock on the door.
Well, that's me, because I love to talk to my patients, my community, my people. Really,
your people,
all
your
part
community.
Of the tribe. We've created a Kiltz's mighty tribe, and I'm having fun every 5 a.m. But I think this is so critical. People from all over the world are listening and finding out more about kinesiology and how chiropractic and what did we call it?
Functional medicine, maybe?
Functional medicine. Yeah. And really, Western medicine is dysfunctional. I'm sorry. It's like, let me see the million diagnoses I could give you, and then the drugs or the dissections. Again, it works great, but it's just a Band-Aid. When we get to the root is you're eating roots, and you need to eat the root eaters. Actually, nope, the grass eaters. Because that's really the way. I eat meat every day. I eat pretty much the same thing every single day. And how old's your little one?
I have an 8-year-old. He's going to be 8 in August.
So another thing about homeschooling, I personally believe homeschooling is the way. But it's not just you're at home, but now we have the ability to connect in ways to inspire because ultimately the schools are driven by rules. You have to eat the food they provide, which is all what? Sugar. No red meat.
There's no sugar at the lunchroom in my school. I want to let everybody know out there that my son, just like me, was born with some bad seasonal allergies. And we've incorporated ketogenic diets at times for him. We're not running him keto all the time, but when his allergies get bad, we go strict keto with him, and they go away within 3 days.
Here's my opinion about children. Moms should breastfeed their babies, and beyond that, they're carnivore children. We are duped. Remember, the last 3.5 million years, it was animals, the bones, the kids chewed on the bones to make their teeth better.
Yep.
Remember, if we get them addicted at a young age, yeah, the diseases are done. And like my sister developed type 1 diabetes at age 4, it's purely because you give them a little bit of the plants. And to me, again, I'm throwing out the really rock hard shit, right? And which is why are we shitting around? There's too many kids developing cancers at a young age. And it's because we are like, oh, you know, some of this is okay. Like you were strong and you say no to the cake. Now, I occasionally eat cookie, cake, and ice cream, but I make it.
That's okay. But you make it. You have the one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, and the reason why I'm probably on here is you had this. I follow these different hashtags, and I saw you were talking about like love and the neck and like spirituality, and I was like, wow, this guy's super dialed, especially for a medical guy, and he's doing hormones, so cool. And then the next thing I saw the Dr. Kiltz keto ice cream, and I was like, wow, this is the coolest guy. I got to make the ice cream. So for everyone out there, if you haven't tried his ice cream thing, look it up and make his ice cream. Listen to him.
And a critical point, plants, when they're cooked properly and you add fat and you eat them from time to time, and I tell the vegans, eggs, cream, butter, cheese. And I tell the vegetarians, you got to be very boring, rice and potatoes, but a lot of fat. But ultimately, there's no vegan cultures that ever thrived and survived ever in the world. And that's part of the problem. We're lying, unfortunately. And, I don't want to lie to the lions that are really dressed as sheep because they're fed food for sheep. And really, an ancestral appropriate nutritional solution is really, really the way. Dr. Bland, I don't want to take too much of your time. We're going to do this again. Okay, cool. I know that. And I always say we have to do reciprocal because, listen, we're connecting dots and stars for all of us. And there's something I don't know, and I know you don't know. But ultimately, as we share and grow the tribe, we want to stay a tribe. So we have lots of dots of tribes. Because when you get to these big, big cities and mega metropolises, you got to be sort of small town. That's the part that I really think is important. Getting out into nature. Tacoma, you're still able to get out into nature. What are your thoughts on getting out in nature and things like that?
Well, not everybody is. I'm from New York City, so I know I got to in my life where I was like, go outside. I was thinking about while I was already outside in Central Park. So I think going outside and being outside wherever you can, wherever there's grass or trees, I think you got to go outside. Now, as far as all that grounding stuff, I think it's great, but I don't think most people realize how much pesticides we spray in this world. So I see a lot of you guys at the Target parking lot trying to ground, and you're soaking up the pesticides in your shoes. It's
well, I'm not a grounder and I'm hearing about it, but listen, go for a walk in nature, hang out with a buddy, listen to a great book, take pictures, enjoy, smell the flowers, but don't eat them because they'll kill you. Is there anything else that I didn't mention, Dr. Bland, that you wanted to say something about?
I actually had a question. Can I ask you a question?
Please.
I have a health question for you. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on fermented vegetables.
Well, fermented vegetables were a means of preservation and breaking down the complex carbs and likely having some beneficial effects on reducing the toxicity of some of the poisons, the phytotoxins, likely having some beneficial effects on reducing the lectins, oxalates, and phytates potentially. I think any plant you eat from time to time is okay. If you think about it, let's see, in a sense, beer is a fermented plant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is all alcohol. So my concern about fermented plants is they have a lot of alcoholic type things in it. So, we're simply trying to turn something that may be poisonous into less poisonous, but rarely are they never poisonous.
Yeah, that's my thing is like, you hear about just, like, because when I was first getting into this world and everything, and I realized like broccoli wasn't healthy for me. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my God, it's just like crazy to unlearn what you've always been taught. And with all this stuff, it's kind of niche. So like, yeah, I'm aware that, like what you said, you ferment it and it becomes less poisonous, but there's no information that I could find about how much less poisonous, because if it's like 10% less poisonous, that's kind of bunk. I'm not,
Joseph Murphy, I was listening to this morning. If you haven't listened to Joseph Murphy or James Allen, you must do that. Okay. But, the mind is really the master of it all. Okay. If you're going around worried about everything you put in your mouth, you're going to be sicker than if you just ate it, enjoyed it, and went on your day. The really most important part is I was talking to my friend Rick that I just met 2 days ago, and we were talking about how people around the globe and take siestas, and they hang out with their friends. They eat fattier things. The conundrum of France is basically they eat fat and they enjoy life. We become so like, oh my God, I better get this. It's blinging. And so I would say, listen, I enjoy my coffee with butter. I drink it in one of my cups I make. I love it's my ritual. Do I sit around and worry about it? Never. I'd say that if you worry about what you're doing, it's worse than the thing actually you're worried about.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think, the point here. But, I see vegans, again, vegetarians, if you add fat to the sugar, it's still better, because sugar and amino acids, both of them must go to the liver via insulin. Both of them must be converted to fat or you die. And this is the part that I say, insulin resistance doesn't exist. It's a false statement. Glucose is not the energy for the mitochondria. It must be converted to acetyl-CoA. Well, it takes 5 steps to pyruvate, but cutting a long chain fatty acid takes about like an infinitesimal second, and it makes no sense. You got a shitload of fat everywhere, and you're going to pick sugar over fat? We should just simply use our brains in modern medicine and science. See, the snake oil science is we all have our bros that we want them to get published in our peer-reviewed journal that says they're good bros. And if you're not published, you're a bad bro. So you'll lie like shit or give your data like a really nice color, and it's great.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Hans Krebs and Otto Warburg I love. Otto Warburg figured out that sugar causes cancer, and Hans Krebs still has this believing that sugar is the energy for our cell.
Wow.
So, that's my shit. What does your wife think of all this craziness?
My wife and my kid and our dog, we eat heavy red meat. My wife can put down a pound burger. She's about 5 feet tall, but she can a pound of burger, no problem. And she notices a big difference in her life. She wasn't always, brought up in like the health and wellness bubble that I was brought up in, but she knows the really big difference in her mood, the level of stress, and just everything that she has to deal with as a mom, because it's not easy being a mom.
I was brought up in death and destruction and didn't care. And I think ultimately, we got Bev and Suzanne and Carol and just so many people joining in. I do my the 5 a.m. club or tribe on Kiltz's. Just go to Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and I'm having a great time. We're going to be joining the Mighty Network. And, there's so many people like yourself. The more stars we connect, the better for everyone here. And we want to put us out of business in the sense of the suffering that's going on. And we know with the magic we've shared, but I say it's really great. It's like you take the car. I fly planes, and you've got to take the plane in the car for maintenance, which sometimes is, man, you're looking great. How you doing? Because I think mentors and cheerleaders and coaches are really the health and wellness physicians, practitioners more than anything. So
I really agree with that. I have a couple of, I train with about 3 people. I switch off who I'm training with depending on my goal, and just having them as coaches and it's a special thing. I have one more question, because this is something that came up recently, and it's a recommendation that I've given to so many people, and I heard something really bad about it, but Kerrygold is one of the only grass-fed butters in the supermarket. It's something that I've told a lot of people, yo, this is the one. And recently they got hit. They've been dealing with this, but were found guilty from a 2018 class action lawsuit that Kerrygold actually puts canola oil, corn, and soy not only in the butter but through their cows. So what I want to know is we need to figure out what kind of butter we're getting.
well, look at this is the butter technically. Look at butter is a modern. I don't know how many thousands of years ago we made butter and cheese and drank the milk out of a cow or whatever it was. But, like anything else, I'm not so neurotic on grass-fed or grain-fed. And I don't know that any animal knows what omega-3 and 6s are. I personally believe the science is screwy in snake oil because it's so complicated. Even doctors can't figure it out. I mean, and so I always say, keep it simple. If the likelihood that the oils, are they really the cooked oils are likely damaging? A little bit of the oils likely, as long as you're getting a lot of animal fat. But I don't know that answer technically. Costco has grass-fed butter there. But, again, the problem with all of this, did you see how they made it? No, never, right?
No. But I will, have you ever heard of Tillamook cheese?
Yeah, I love Tillamook.
These are great people. They will show you. You can go there. They will show you how to make it.
Well, maybe that's the point for everyone. So listen, don't trust you. Don't trust me. Don't trust any of us. See, I tell people we're not your doctors. We're just sort of some knowledgeable humans that have experienced a lot of human suffering. But ultimately, we're just giving you advice that you ultimately say, yay or nay. You've got to do the work yourself. And so, because we're looking for a trusted source, but humans, we might think we know what we're saying, but then as it turns out, it's different. So, that's the beauty of the internet, Dr. Google. People bring a long list of things they want me to do. And I say, whatever you want me to do, I'm here for you. And I've learned so much from my community and now our social connection. I call it social medicine. Social medicine is the rockinest medicine you can have. You are eliminating the middleman here, right? You can learn from anyone can learn from any of us by simply listening, and then you do it. It either makes you better or makes you sicker or no change. Ultimately, though, you're responsible for what you decide to do in your life. That's the most important thing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, when we were talking about emotions, people need to incorporate what I like to call radical responsibility. You have to not only follow through with what your goals are, but you have to pedal past it. You have to even go all the way past your goal. You don't want to walk past the finish line. You want to run past the finish line.
Absolutely. And so the most important thing in life is your goals should be way ahead of what you could ever attain. Because if you could attain it, it's not a goal, it's a done deal. And you need to keep doing and raise the bar to the point that you don't even know where it's at. And because if you're not failing in life, you're missing the point of life. So every time you fail and you just stay in the fail bucket, someone's got to kick the can and spill you over and get you up off your ass. That's what those coaches and cheerleaders are all about. And I would say that's what we're here to do. But someone's going to kick my ass too. I need to be raising the bar. And I think it's great. I do weights. I don't do running. I do my bikes. I go around because I love to peruse the neighborhood where I live.
Cool.
And it's really great to do. I don't intermittently fast. Kathy was asking about intermittent fasting. I believe intermittent fasting is always eating. You want to intermittently feast and fast for 23 hours. That's the very best health and wellness to the glycobiome. I don't know, I don't know about you. I occasionally do more than one day, but I don't know why. It's necessary. If you go to one meal, high fat, low protein, low carbs, you'll be healthier than shit.
I agree. I experiment with a lot of different things. I think I'm at this point where every other week I'll fast for a day. Like
cool.
Totally, just no,
cool.
like nothing, except water and some electrolytes. But other than that, I usually am eating 2 main meals a day.
Well, the interesting thing I tell people, let's see, you eat 2 meals or 3 meals, whatever it is, and then you go to the gym to burn calories to lose weight. Why don't you just eat less frequently? See, I don't even know what a calorie is. No one really knows what a calorie is.
Nah, it's
stupid. How many grams, macros, nutrients? I don't have to know. I tell people, listen, no animal in the universe measures anything. They know what they've killed since the day they were born to the day they die. And they have a natural instinct. I'd say our natural instinct is to hunt, you and I. And and that is it. And we've been duped by the masters that feed us mush and keep us meek. But when you eat the meat, you become the master. And you want to take charge of yourself. And that's what we're learning and sharing in this by starting with what are you putting in here? What are you putting in here? And how you move in this beautiful machine here. So again, Dr. Bland, Ryan, thank you very much. A blessing to you. Can people simply, do a phone or a Skype consult with you from around the globe?
Absolutely. I have telehealth patients from Washington to Australia. It's absolutely amazing to be able to connect. So yeah, if you're interested in connecting or you're interested in club soda, call me. I love it.
Yeah, right. So Bev, I do Topo Chico and Gerolsteiner. I like mineral water. So what's your thoughts on mineral? We can go for 5 hours, I know, but
whatever you want to do. I've got some time. My thoughts. I'm not sure if it's phthalates, but there's a few mineral waters out there that are high in like microplastics. I think Topo Chico, I'm not trying to blow you up, but I think Topo Chico might have. You
can blow me up. It's okay. My friend gave me a 12-pack.
They're good. They're good. I only say this stuff because like I've made the mistake. No one's drank more of it than me. But I found out recently that a lot of these companies, they have like microplastics in it. So I like the Mountain Valley one.
Yes.
The green one. They have a good sparkling one and they have a pretty good profile on it. I think that's the best one. I drink a lot of that stuff. I like mineral water.
Gerolsteiner is really good. German mineral water, naturally carbonated, and glass is best.
Glass is best.
I think for everyone. And my number one is the whey, the baby's whey. And you can't go wrong. It is so simple. I'm a simple guy. I eat 5 to 6 things and that is it. And nothing else is in my refrigerator. And my cupboard, there's nothing in it.
Nothing in it.
Nothing in it.
I forgot to talk about my late night snack.
Oh, tell us about it.
Eggs and bacon.
Eggs and bacon. I love it. I love it. Well, last night I had tenderloin in the freezer that my partner Tia got, and I started. Well, I made it, and then I cooked it in butter. But then I melted even more butter and put it on it, and I cut a piece of the steak and I put a slice of butter and eat that. And that's why I think that's why the ice cream, it's cream, and the butter you know, if you can get full on, you know, animal fat, you know, milk butter, it's the best ever. And for all of us. So eat the fat and live a fantastic life. Dr. Bland, God bless you. Thank you. We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Let's keep on sharing it back and forth to everyone. God bless. 5 a.m. tomorrow, Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday, my 10 to 11 or 12, whatever it is. So God bless to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Doc.